right, welcome. I think we are live. Lavish, could you confirm if you're live? If you're live, I think we have attendees coming in. Hello, guys. Keep joining in, and we'll start in about 3 to 4 minutes. Thanks for your time this Saturday. We'll be right back. Hello, Arjun Nair. Hello, Manjunath Srinath. I hope you guys are doing well. If you can hear me, one of you could just chat in the section down below in Zoom. Just say that you can hear me. There are a few more who will be joining directly on YouTube, and some of them may join here. Great, perfect. Very well, thank you. So it's been a pretty interesting last couple of weeks in terms of what we have been finding out from different countries and how things have been developing on different fronts. We are seeing few trends coming up in general, and we think that it's important to just keep ourselves updated and make sure that we plan our next step accordingly. So in this webinar, what GradWrite is bringing together is a set of updates from different countries and within different countries from different institutions, which are putting a word out, and in what are the directions in which these responses are coming out in terms of their actions regarding fall 2020, and particularly the admits, and what are the conditions they're offering to the students, and what are the steps that they're taking to balance their incoming students and at the same time maintain safety among these students. So we'll go through a few updates. We'll start with the trends, and then we'll dive deeper into each of the countries and look at individual university updates, which point at a few dominant directions. There is also an understanding that there is a coordinated effort among different universities. So more often than not, you will see some of the trends emerging may actually become true in terms of a larger trend that will emerge in June or July. So we are going to talk about some timelines around when things will be clearer, why that time, and what is happening meanwhile, and what are the universities communicating at this point, and what can you do now if you fall into any of these categories, right? So throughout this webinar, we'll talk about this, but before jumping into those aspects, I would like to bring upon some key points in terms of how we engage here. Feel free to raise your hand or chat, as a member on Zoom. If you are on YouTube, you can chat, and one of our, we'll keep a track of what you post on chat. And if there are any questions, make sure that you put them in the Q&A section and not in the general chat section, especially those who are on Zoom, so that we can actually make sure that we address the question and answers, the questions that you're posting, and answer them for sure before the time runs out. And we are going to do a quick check in terms of who is here, and in terms of just their the program that you're going to, the university that they're going to, just for the sake of everyone. So post a message to everyone, just introducing the program that you're going to and the university that they're going to, and and follow it up with one pressing question that you have that you surely want to be answered in the webinar. So go ahead and post those three details: the program, university, and the pressing question. So we'll collect responses from different parts, on this webinar or afterwards in the discussion group. People can keep sharing their comments, and we will make sure that we'll get back with an informed, advice from what we collect from different universities and from different students. So keep it coming, and a very good morning. So Manjunath Srinath, going for Masters in Supply Chain Management at Concordia University. And if possible, just select everyone and post that message, Srinath or Manjunath, so that everyone can see that the message and be on the same page. And also think about, what is your pressing question? Yeah. Post the most pressing question in the Q&A section. That is the place where you may want to ask all the questions, and in the chat section, you choose everyone and chat when you type in and introduce yourselves. Hello, Sharmila. Hello, Arjun. Few more who are on different channels apart from the Zoom. Hello to everyone. We'll just wait for a couple of more minutes before we jump into the Q&A and the updates based on what you post in the Q&A. So broadly, let me get to the recent developments and broad highlights. Meanwhile, think about your pressing question, keep them coming. You keep your question active, and the Q&A window active, and keep posting whatever you think you want to ask us. And if we know it, and if we have found some direction that in our research to answer that, we will. Otherwise, we will do our research. We'll let you know that we don't know that, and we can get back to you either in the discussions, or the discussions part or the comments part of this video, or directly to the registered email address, if at all available. So let me get into some broad highlights without much ado, and we'll make sure that we'll keep moving. The broad highlights that we observe in the last 2 weeks is that majority of the universities are announcing that they want to go online. Some of them saying that you only have an online option. Some of them are saying that we want you to choose an online option, and some of them are in fact giving the option but not giving a rebate on the tuition fee. So different kinds of options, but generally everyone is going in the direction. When I say everyone, I'm talking about the majority. Please do not think that it's a fact in case of every single university. We'll talk about some exceptions in this particular call. So we see that there is a movement towards going online because there is an increasing fear or lack of preparedness or just a concern for the student's safety, to be sure that every one of us is safe and everyone in the local community of the universities are safer. Though students, considering their age, they may not be of high risk. What happens is these universities would consider a risk to the community around the university. So that is also a huge concern that they have been evaluating. And though there is an economic risk that may come in, they want to see if, how many students would actually take an online program, paying a full tuition fee in certain cases. So you will also feel that you will also see that some of the universities majorly in the US have communicated this option of going online. And those who are not giving the online option, they are lesser in number. They belong to a minority. So if your university has communicated that there is no online option, then you should know that that is a part of a minority set of universities. And if they are asking you to surely come, that would make sure that mostly in the US, you will not find such an option. So you could really look at having a conversation with them and understanding a little more details about the possibility of deferral. But more often than not, either they push for the online semester or they ask you to, come onto the campus. They are giving an option of deferral. That's the second point. And that is something that you often see, that there is an option to defer, but there is a preference, of the universities that you defer to just the spring semester and not the entire academic year and go all the way to fall 2020. So there is an active communication from the universities saying that even with a spring semester, there are certain CPT advantages that you will have, even when you start the semester online. By the end of the program, within the one-year program, if you're on campus, then there is a possibility of starting off with your CPT, that is legally being eligible for the internships which are available in these foreign countries, specifically in the US, right? So it's not that all of them would urge you to go for spring. They're not forcing you, but generally you will find an online semester option, a spring semester deferral, and a fall semester deferral. And in some cases, about 30 to 40% of them are not giving this fall semester deferral. They're asking you or pushing you towards a spring semester deferral. The universities, US universities broadly, though they indicate these options, they are uncertain about what happens, because everyone is preparing themselves towards an online semester. But if things move positively, which is predominantly based on USCIS and the government's decision around welcoming international students at this point, with about 1.5 million COVID cases, that looks like a far-fetched assumption to many. And so they put out options in terms of how they can plan the online semester. And note that even though the semester is online, you should differentiate a communication that comes from a university when it says that it is trying to, open up the university, for all the students and staff members. Predominantly, there is a possibility that the staff members are being invited or they're required to make sure that the online programs, even if there is an online program, there's a high probability that all of them need to be on campus, at least the faculty and staff. And that is something that they may be indicating. You need to look at those fine print details and understand what exactly do they mean when they open up, right? So that's a broad term, and you may not want to get deviated by usage of those terms in the news channels. And US university, so Australia, New Zealand, and Canada have all announced plans to allow international student travel into their borders. This is a slightly more decisive track that these countries have taken. We predominantly see that there is a need, and also the cases are a little low. So the need of opening up the sector, the higher education sector, and also the cases are not that high like in the US, so they feel more confident of opening it up. But they are, for example, Australia, New Zealand, we'll go through some of the examples and exactly see what their steps are. There is a dominant view that they have to go in a staged manner. They're trying to restrict the movements or or the group gatherings to 10 or lesser number of people in the first phase. So it's a phase-wise manner in which they get opened up. The biggest risk, as I said, is the visa delays, whether the government actually opens this up or not. It's not the universities that would be a blocker in going forward into your program. Completely online academic year is again a risk because, especially when there is no tuition rebates that are coming in along with this communication of going online. So they talk about different selling points. I'm going to comment on my personal views on how this communication is happening. For example, a university might be communicating that the cost of living is what you are saving if you are going on an online semester. Now, it's important to understand that cost of living is an expenditure on your part. It is not an expenditure or a fee that you're paying the university in a way. You can choose to live anywhere. And so really it boils down to how the tuition fee is moving, and the cost of living, the saving in it could be negligible in many of the cases. Whereas if the experience is changing, you may want to go back and ask the university to consider a rebate like many other universities are giving. So make sure that you have that conversations. Don't assume that you're left with no option. So if there are any questions, keep them coming in, on the Q&A section. And there seems to be one or two, and let me just quickly grab them. Yeah, so you received a mail from Concordia University, Manjunath, yesterday, which stated that the first term will be online. I heard there will not be rebate fees. So what do I do? So our recommendation is that, you have to, group up with other students who are going to Concordia. Make sure that you put together a group effort and a collaborative effort to put in a petition explaining why an online semester should be discounted in its price. And in fact, we are running an initiative to help students like you to put together these petitions, and we can collaboratively work in terms of building the arguments on why it's required. And then you could, have the other students who are admitted to Concordia University, particularly your program, or the university itself, to group them up and then make sure that you aggregate these voices and communicate to the university. Now, in this tight schedule of all this COVID and how the structure of this engagement between individual students and university is, unfortunately, there is no one voice, and the honest voice of the student is not being asked for. So, it could be just because of the rush the university is in, but it is important to take initiative at a student level, and we can help you on that front. That's your best option to go back and ask for a rebate if you are interested in starting an online semester with a discounted price. But Canada is in general open, and they might actually, they are more favorable in terms of allowing students to come onto the campus. So the moment there is greater confidence that your university gains on that, maybe it gets opened up to an online semester, mostly from the spring semester. And in terms of going forward, whether to go for an online semester or not, my preference is always to choose, or the way I think is that you should always choose what the majority is not choosing. As long as it's sensible enough and rationally good enough, keeping the fear aside. And from that lens, I say that you could consider moving forward for your online semester, but make sure that you put in the best effort for a discounted price tag. If it is not going to be discounted, in that case, I don't think the equation works between what you are paying and what the university is delivering. So it is an evaluation that you will have to do, whether you have the luxury of putting in that money or not, even without the visa confirmation. Right? I hope I answered that question. Moving on to the next one, Srishti, your question is that my department at CMU is not allowing fall deferral. They're going for a hybrid model. I'm personally not in favor of online semesters. So this is, I think, more in terms of, the CMU update that is coming in, that they're not allowing an online, the deferral option. So we'll get to those to that option, and we'll talk about that. And yeah, if it is not going to be discounted, it may not be worth it to choose and go forward. But there might be a spring deferral, and in that case, you may want to choose that. And the other one is they're allowing us to defer to spring, that too when we are not able to make it for fall 2020, right? So the option of going to the spring is something that universities are more comfortable than fall. So you will see some movement towards that in terms of the communication, at all stages. So let's move forward in terms of just talking about some of the specific US developments. US suspended the entry of most of the new immigrants for 60 plus days and about 30-day review to recommend new restrictions. Will this affect you? The comments is that, what we gather, it's that this policy will not affect H-1B, right now with the changes. It's not going to be affecting predominantly your status in any way, because there is no hard restriction on student visas as yet. It's not a decision that has been taken and announced that they are not going to allow students. So you should only understand that the activity has been paused, and it's not that you are not being allowed. So it just leads to delay, which will just mean that you will have to be actively looking at when they open up, and the embassies would open up, and that would create the possibility of actually moving forward, right? So it is not something you should worry about, to simply put. And the other one is the Republican senators in the US have sent a letter to President Trump asking him to suspend OPT as well as H-1B. The possibility of this getting implemented, according to us, is quite low, and whatever is happening, whatever we understand from various discussions around, whether US can actually block this completely. One of the things that we want to just bring in is the economical impact of international students in the US. It has about $45 billion contribution towards the US economy. And it's not just the CMUs or the Harvards or the best schools in the country that you should consider, because whatever applies, whatever rule or policy decision they take, it is mostly going to be homogeneous. And what that means is that the impact is going to be wider and much larger than what it implies to you. So if they want to restrict you, then they have to restrict about 100,000 other students. If they have to restrict anyone coming to one university, they have to restrict movement to say 4,000 other universities and colleges. So just understand that the impact is quite large enough that it is not easy for the governments to just block this. In terms of Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, Australia and New Zealand may open up in the coming months with some restrictions and quarantine measures. That is something that we have been observing the last 2 weeks. There are different articles explaining how Australia, in fact, it's very important for Australia to open up for international students. There is a question mark around welcoming more of Chinese students. And so the largest chunk, other than Chinese students, would be the Indian group of students. So in terms of international students, whenever they look at international students, Indian students come to be the number one option to look at. They are the largest chunk in the world who travel to these countries. And so it is quite important for them, even though, even the way the education system is structured in Australia is that, the revenue that they get from the tuition fee is way more important than what the universities get, say, from the governments. So it is tightly linked into your employability, you coming and paying the loans, you coming and paying the fees using your loans or, through some other means. And the success of the university or the running of the university really depends on that. New Zealand moved to alert level 2, which creates more flexibility, and it's basically reopening all the schools and higher education institutions again. In terms of foreign students, welcoming them, welcoming the foreign students, it is not too clear on whether they will actually have all the international students come in, but their institutions within the domestic market, they're geared up to actually run and open up, in terms of the domestic students. In terms of Canada, the Canadian federal government has said it will allow international students to enter Canada, despite new restrictions at the border to limit the spread of coronavirus. So there is clear communication that has come out. In fact, it is news from yesterday, I suppose. The Canadian federal government has said that is going to allow, and in fact, you coming in, or even if you start an online semester, it will be considered towards your work permit, and it's not going to affect your ability to settle in Canada if at all you're looking at that. So in case there are any questions that you have at this point, feel free to put them in the Q&A section. Let me quickly see if if there is anything that is not answered yet. Got it. So we'll keep moving, and if you want this to be specific about a particular topic, please let us know in the chat section, or you can ask in the Q&A section exactly what you want to be hearing, so that we won't delay in responding to those things. Perfect. So in terms of in terms of the length of the course, you should also understand that if it is 12 months or 16 months long courses, in general, going online would be not so valuable in terms of value for money point of view. So there is also an inclination from universities to see that and just not even offer an online option, or just say either it goes both ways. Some of them are actually communicating that it's a 12-month or a 16-month program, and it is going to be a short program. So the students will not be looking at the idea of going online, but whoever wants to come within the domestic market, they can join in person. So they're taking a call in either direction, but you should know as a student that this 12 months to 16 month or less than 2 years would not be too valuable in terms of if at all you're paying a full amount towards the course. And in terms of CPT, most of you are up to date around CPT and OPT in the US markets. Just to run you through some of the key details, CPT is mostly used for working during the program for the internships, and can be full-time or part-time that you utilize it for. It is the duration is maximum up to 12 months, and it has to be done before you graduate. It is not for something that you graduate and then work towards. That part is OPT, and that will come to a later point. But if you use up 12 months of CPT within your graduation time, then you cannot actually opt for OPT. So mostly people would choose an internship for 2 to 3 months, and then so they can keep their option open for OPT, which allows greater flexibility in terms of whom you can work with. CPT allows you to work with only a set of listed institutions, and it cannot be extended. Whereas coming to OPT is basically the work authorization that you get immediately after you graduate. You have the duration up to 12 months. And something that you need to know is that if you're going for a STEM program, it can be extended for about 70 more months. Now, it's only applicable for STEM, and the definition of STEM is slightly broader than the last few years. So you could look at your program and see if it is already being considered as STEM, and most of you would have done that already. So the idea of you working with any employer, there is a greater flexibility in the OPT period. Now, how are they getting affected? OPT. So let's start with CPT updates on by universities. So if you are starting this fall 2020 classes remotely, CMU says that you are eligible for CPT for students starting classes remotely for fall 2020, and if you are on campus for spring 2021, for programs requiring internship and not all others, right? So it is important to note the condition of the spring 2021. And whereas coming to UC San Diego, I'm going to run you through certain updates from different universities so that we can pick up some trends and talk about it. The University of California, San Diego, they are also saying that you are eligible, would allow international students to meet the full academic year requirements for fall 2021, so that students are eligible to pursue their internships in summer. So this is another university which clearly communicated that you will be eligible. RIT, we talked about it last time. It's the, starting classes remotely for fall 2020 will have no negative impact on your ability to gain work through RIT's co-op education program, CPT, OPT, or STEM extension program. STEM extension is nothing but OPT extension because of the STEM program. And you will have the opportunity to apply for CPT after your second SEM, one online and one on campus. So again, deferral to spring would mean that you can have, or if you're studying online and if you are on the campus in the second semester, that is when you will have the CPT program open for you. If you're studying online and you're completing the entire semester online, then in these institutions, they clearly say that it will not make you eligible for CPT. In University of California, Berkeley, it says there is, you're not eligible. This is again against what we saw in the last three universities. UC Berkeley says that valid F1 status for at least 2 semesters and completed 1 academic year as a full-time student in a SEVIS approved school. So SEVIS is just an organization which looks at the entire idea of students engaging with the US system. So valid F1 status and 1 academic year being completed, and they say that according to them, completion would be on campus. University of Southern California not allowing so far. So you would see in California there is a movement towards. We'll talk about the California system in a bit, but there is a general movement towards creating some kind of a more safer environments for the students by blocking the pathway for some of the international students. So they are, they have come up with some updates in the last few days. We'll talk about that in a bit. University of Pennsylvania, my alma mater, there is no clear communication yet about what they are going to do, but they are going to prepare, to go online. There is no clear communication on, what are the options that they're giving for fall 2020 students, not that clearly. And there is obviously, I think there is in terms of the deferral, Shivani, help me out. In terms of deferral, there is some news that we gather, but we're not 100% sure about that, I suppose. Right? You're on mute if at all you are wanting to talk.
Yeah, no, we're not sure it. We're not sure yet.
Got it. So Indiana University, Bloomington, not sure, again, asked to wait until USCIS announces. So most of the universities have given out an indication that it is the USCIS which will decide we are fine with it, or we see that it's not possible. So these are the 3 ways that the communication has been, and there is a possibility with majority of the institutions in the market communicating that it can be worked out, and there is an indication that there will be flexibilities that will be created around this. So the broader trend is on-campus spring semester condition is popular, and preference is also popular. So people universities are pushing you to go for the spring semester over fall semester. But beyond this, the online option is definitely there in the majority of the cases. So if you are looking for a deferral, mostly you will find the university pushing you towards the spring semester deferral. A clearer picture would be available once the change is declared by the USCIS. Universities are with you, else it could only mean a continued revenue loss for US schools. We talked about the economic impact that international students bring in. So the universities are directly affected by this. So they want to make it work for you. So just raise your voice and collectively put together the arguments in a way that it works for you and make sure that on your end of bargain is rightly met. More clarity to come by mid of June 2020. A lot of universities have, basically communicated that. If we look at, quick snapshot of fall 2020 plans. So this is a survey done by Chronicle of Higher Education, and they asked the universities and colleges, about 560 of them, and they asked what are they really up to and how are they really, opening up their universities. And the most popular one is planning for in-person. They're ready to plan for an in-person classroom. They want to prefer doing that. They are in the process of figuring out how many students can be brought in, what is the reduced number of students who need to be there on campus, how do we maintain social distancing. And a lot of people are planning for this option. The only possibility that they are not really sure about is that whether USCIS will allow the students to come in or not. But universities are ready to do it from their own standpoint. And the second most popular option is waiting to decide, and it's mostly related to what happens with the corona trend in the local environment and the local, in the state, the community, and or, related to the USCIS decision. The third option is they are trying to create a set of live classroom sessions, or how to really work maybe with a set of domestic students coming in person and foreign international students being online. So that is also something that they're evaluating. In that case, the experience differs, the evaluation schemes differ. So they are trying to bring in a lot of scenarios at a course level and trying to plan in that direction. And planning for online is 7% according to this, because it's just, it is a preference from the university point that you should consider in-person is preferred over online. But you see that for the international students, these online plans are really coming out, to be popular options. So this is based on the domestic market and what are the universities and the system is doing, irrespective of what it communicates or what they communicate to the international students. But if you look at the international students, there is an online option which is predominantly being communicated, which is not accurately covered in the nuances of this survey. Yeah, so we'll just quickly go through some of them. University of Pennsylvania, some of the things that they're doing is that they're going to allow mostly only single bedroom living, and other precautionary measures are being planned on campus. They did not communicate anything yet. Combination of in-class and virtual teaching. UPenn, it has a history of being very active on Coursera, and it has even been a founding member at Coursera. So it is something that you will see as, as a preference for the institution, and is easy to switch. And a lot of courses that are already in the pipeline to go online have already gone online. So it's culturally, it's not something which is shocking to them to go online. Texas A&M, interestingly, currently planning to conduct classes in person for fall semester, like the survey says. And spring and summer 2020 semesters were transitioned to a fully online delivery. This is basically what has happened in March, April, May, and even now what is happening in May, June, July. This is the time then, they're referring to. They have transitioned to a fully online delivery of courses. And the clear communication would only come out, by the end of May is what the communication has been. Columbia University declared plans to resume laboratory work, which was suspended. So there is some movement towards opening up, the plans of, inviting students, especially for the laboratory work with a lot of precaution. Preparing for a 3-term academic year. So you would find that more courses are, basically being pushed into a lesser time frame in a way. So there will be a slight shift in some of the plans that universities may come up. The way they conduct the courses, you will find shrinked semesters or semesters with more courses coming in. That may to an extent affect the learning on campus or online. But it should also be considered that we are all facing the difficulty. So I think we should just take it as an exception for this year. And more updates about this approach, they said Columbia is going to announce by July 1st. So June end is the real time when most of the universities are really putting the word out. And June 15th to June 30th is mostly the time when things would solidify in these directions, and a solid communication would come out with clear set of options laid out by these universities. It has started already, but not many have actually laid out these options very clearly. Cornell has pushed for pre-enrollment of fall 2020 courses back. So we talked about it. It's basically moving the summer courses in a way, and decision to resume laboratory work is expected in the next few days. The final decision on resuming on-campus instruction is expected on June 15th. So mostly right now, no word yet. UC Berkeley invests in developing enhanced online material. So UC Berkeley has been one of the institutions which is predominantly pushing for an online program, and the overall communication has been in that direction for multiple programs. Dartmouth, recently details about return of students' belongings have been released. Considering current developments, of full-fledged on-campus return seems out of the question. So they are going to go online, and they don't see any possibility of returning to the normal that we all know as normal. And we'll communicate the final decisions again by June 29th. Again, you see that June 15th to June 30th, that's the window that you may, there are more things that will come out. And this is a cluster of universities, California State University system, which you will see as, the fall classes are all beginning online on 24th of August. So just to avoid any confusion, the entire California State University system, either Fullerton, Long Beach, whatever you choose, all these universities are going to have, online classes getting started. Some hands-on learning experience, such as capstone engineering project or using specialized equipment, will still be available with intensive precautions, but there will be a minority of students who will belong to this category. Guidelines on international student travel are still unclear. University advises to continue with application process as usual. So you should just be prepared if any of these schools are your target schools, and you are actually getting an admit into it. You should know that you are going to start an online semester 99% with a 99% probability, with clear things laid out, and the student travel still being unclear. Declared plans for virtual classes already. So this is one system which has put a clear communication, a larger system which has put a clear communication out. University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, they are again planning for in-person classes. So it's a shift from the online system that you saw on one end by the California system. They are trying to bring in a model, maybe with reduced number of students, or with the idea of cultivating different kinds of systems on campus. They are trying to bring in-person classes. North Carolina State University can defer the admissions by August 1st, and they have assured they will accept all deferral requests. So in general, this is a trend. Many of the universities are putting out deferral options, and they're happy to accept them, considering and being empathetic about what the students might be going through. But it's a choice on you as a student whether you want to wait for another 1 year or not. They also made a point that it is wise to join in fall 2020, as many of the students are differing. There'll be a shortage of MS graduate, students in graduates who actually come out of the program in 21-22. So there is a better chance of placements and getting the opportunities, whatever they are available at that time, as the economy tends to open up by that time. And planning for in-person classes. So that's the summary of, from this state university, from North Carolina State University. But it makes an important point. When you graduate, you will be among the minority, and that will give you, an edge over others in cracking some of these opportunities that will open up. So do consider that. We see that the economy will open up in a year's time. If you are trying to graduate in 2022, then there is a good possibility that 2 years of time at a university is the best thing that you could do when there is an economic slowdown. And in fact, Stanford did a research on the past recessions or whatever economic slowdowns have come out, and you could find, just type in Great Recessions and higher education enrollments in Google, and along with Stanford University, you will find, I think, Professor Carolyn Hawksby, she put out the research, and you will find more information about how the universities in the US have actually increased their enrollments during the economic recession. If you look at the student loans trends, they boost up to 30% during an economic slowdown point. So it is something that is a good thing to do when the economy out there is quite, dicey. So we have seen Zomato firing a lot of employees, Uber firing 3,700 employees last week, Zomato with 13% of workforce going. So within India itself and even in the US. So there will be a continuation in this trend, and you just need to know that it will not stay true by the time you graduate, not to this extent, and it will only improve from here on. New York University, surprisingly, they said that they're going to resume in-person classes in New York City, even with the pandemic actually being dominant in that city, while preparing for a number of different scenarios, such as supporting those who cannot attend in-person classes, planning for the safety of students, etc. University will provide more details about the fall semester based on the work of these groups later on. So they form working groups and decision groups around how to structure their processes differently. And mostly in early June, that is when the New York City wants to put out clear communication for this. Purdue University, on the other end, the newly admitted international graduate students admitted for fall 2020 may ask to defer their admission to spring 2021, summer 2021, or fall 2021 for any reason. So it is quite flexible in terms of deferral. Meeting will be held on May 26th to discuss the reopening of the campus. So mostly again in first week of June or second week of June, that is when it will come out with some solid communication around what they're going to do around their in-person classes, but they want to go for in-person classes. It's not, Purdue is also not in a large city. It's in West Lafayette, and it's not in it's in the Midwest. So you will find that the number of cases there are a little low. Some of my friends who are there say that it's not that risky. They keep going to their labs, but it's something that they are cautious about. Carnegie Mellon University, very clear about going online. CMU will soon begin a phased approach for carefully reopening some activities on the Pittsburgh campus. A combination of in-person and online instruction is being planned for Pittsburgh primarily. Other campuses are also expected to follow this model. And if CMU is not offering a rebate, you know what to do. I think you just group up with more students and make sure that you communicate actively what the fair price is for the online semester. Northeastern University, it is our intention to reopen our campuses this fall and offer on-site instruction and a residential experience for our students, says NAU president. So you will find on-site or in-person interaction. That's what they're planning towards. Northeastern is quite a popular one among all the Indian students, and without USCIS support, they will not be able to implement this in-person interaction for international students. So it really again boils down to whether this in-person classes would really reach the international students or not. And again, USCIS is a blocker there. So you will find any movement in or trust that you can place on this message really comes with a condition on what the US government would say. Duke, on the other hand, says that we hope to have some clarity by the middle of June, says Duke's vice president, and right now they have been considering various options. They did not finalize the direction in which they want to go. University-wide planning for reopening of clinical operations. There's a Fletcher School resuming on-campus administrative operations, etc. Remote option for those who may not be able to get to Medford by then for whatever reason. So it is something that you should be aware of, and many of the universities have been creating these remote options. There is just more and more universities and schools that are coming out with this option by the day. Before we jump into the Australian universities, if there is anything that you want me to share, or if you think that there are questions that you have, keep them coming in. Otherwise, it would look like I'm just talking to myself. So, it would be best if you just keep out, your fears and just type in what is the worrying aspect. Either it could be related to the possibility of jobs, or it could be related to your student loans and how do you plan around any of these details, or it could be about what do you really need to do for your case. So keep them coming in, and we are here to answer them. And we're also looking at the chat section on the YouTube. So in case any of you are typing in any of the messages there, we'll fetch them up and answer it here. Right. So let's jump into the Australian universities. Australian university, as I said, the system is is a little more dependent on the international students, and it is connected to universities' funding is connected to what kind of upskilling they do and what kind of employment they create in the economy there. And with the slowdown in economy, the universities are stuck in the middle. The funding depends on what happens after the students graduate, and the students are not coming, and the government is the only source of income that they are left with, which is connecting to the employment, right? So they want you to come into the campus. They are waiting to welcome you to the campus. But let's see how they have been putting out their word. And for those who are looking at just the US, this could be something which may happen in the US with time, with just a little slowdown in the coronavirus cases. University of Adelaide has expressed the hope that if travel restrictions are lifted and international travel becomes more acceptable, they hope to see students in the campus. So it's dependent on the safety, then the government again, that they are looking towards. And with Australia, Australian government, announcing that they're going to, stage-wise open it up, it could be a positive news for the University of Adelaide. Swinburne, I suppose that's the way you pronounce that. Swinburne University clearly states that students can commence studies online. They can come to Australia once the situation changes, and the students will be granted full credits for units successfully completed online with a valid visa. That the key is the valid visa. You can come to the campus if you have a valid visa. How do you get the visa? You need to have the embassy opened and go through that process of putting all the funding, documents and all of that. How do you get the funding documents? You actually need to take a loan and move forward. So it's a costly option to move forward in a way to be eligible to be there and quickly move to the campus. But they, by indicating this, what they're saying is that they're ready to move forward. It's the government which basically needs to clear the blocker for them. James Cook University and University of Queensland are examining alternate dates for the start of the second semester, that is July 2020 intake. So you'll see some push in terms of the starting date by a month or so is the assumption right now, and then they may open up. Australian National University is planning a staged phase by phase. Is planning a staged phase by phase return to campus by end of July for all students and staff. Now, this is again for all students. If it is clearly mentioning all students, then you could consider international students to be part of it. And there is also news that they're going to restrict groups of only 10 people or to group in the initial phase, and the second stage could be about 50 or 30, and then third phase could be up to 100. So in any case, not more than 100 people would gather at one place. So being on campus would also mean that you will not, in Australia in general, this is something that has come out generally in Australia, not just about Australian National University, or generally you will not be participating in large crowd gatherings. And if you think that that is what excites you the most, that's not what you will get when you go there in the first year, of course. or at least in the first 6 months. Moving to some of the Dutch universities, and there is Delft University. The campus will remain closed for all educational activities until at least June 15th. This applies to faculties, restaurants, and other buildings. And they're going to update later in this month. Recently, some Dutch universities announced that they plan to teach courses wholly or partially online until February 2021. And Delft is not among them. So you will, you see that Delft is not permitting admitted students to defer their admission. This is one exception wherein, it's not permitting admitted students to defer their admission. Usually, every single university have been doing this. So Delft sees that there is no strong reason for that, and there could be basically safety measures that can be implemented at Delft. So it is not allowing its universities to push their admission to spring or fall. That means you will have to move forward and get to the campus, unless there is a visa restriction that will come in, and it will be, I think, it's not clearly stated, but on a case-by-case basis, they may handle those cases. So here is Wageningen University, and what you see as the 2021 academic year of this university will commence on 31st of August, as usual, to be a mix of on-campus practicals and working groups with online lectures. So there is always a mix that people talk about. Whenever they say a mix, to be honest, I don't know, because to what extent they call it a mix. Either it is 90% online or 10% offline, or a 10% online, 90% offline. Both of them can be called a mix. So there is no clarity yet, and that is yet to come from this university. Looking at Canadian universities, here are some major universities which have announced online classes for fall 2020. Here goes your comment: Manjunath, Concordia University, York University, McGill, University of Ottawa, University of British Columbia, University of Alberta. Now, the positive thing about Canada is that the employability or the employment options are still open. The PR possibility is still open, even if you start an online class. So there is an exception being considered for programs which require lab experiments to be on campus. But if international students will be, if they start off online, you will still be eligible for postgraduate work permit, which is basically that generally you get after moving to Canada. So you can type in CIC News. That's the article that we picked up, and we are referring to that. So this is majorly the advice, what we gather, and what we see is that as students who are going through all of this, it could be a lot. No other batch has faced what you're facing, so it's totally fine if if you're going through this, but because we are all with you in this uncertainty, you are not alone. So we have to just figure out innovative solutions, keep up with the news internationally, and keep an eye out for university updates. And you can always reach out to us and talk about any question that you have in terms of, what different universities are saying and how can you go through whatever you're going through in terms of this confusion. What is the best step in terms of value for money? Is it worth paying, say, $40,000 and move forward with an online semester? So, and what is the real value out of that you can get, even if there is government that is permitting you to get the CPTs and OPTs after a year? So you'll need to evaluate these things. Then you can at any time reach out to us. If you're already admitted, keep in touch with your university's admissions office, obviously, and apply for a visa as soon as possible, as and when it gets opened up. But for you to apply to visas, you will need to be prepared with everything. So our advice goes back to the idea of making sure that the admitted university that you have chosen, assume that you are going for fall 2020, because if the university comes back and gives you a discounted rate and it allows you to enroll online, you will still require a valid visa to actually move through the entire process and go in spring, right? You may think that all of this will be done later, but we are just saying that you need to be prepared and don't wait for the last minute, preparations regarding your funding documents and all of it. And you could use the, we put together all the online lenders in one place. So you could, and it's a free platform. So you could access that and see, who is the right lender to work with and who has the right conditions that will not allow you to get stuck in a loan and end up paying interest when your plans have actually changed. So make sure that you participate in that bidding, let different banks compete for you, or if it is even outside the platform, make sure that you put together your documents in place and work towards all of, getting all the sanctions for free and or a discounted set of sanctions. And you can use those sanctions anytime in the next year. Needless to say that, we want you to share whatever your updates are with us. That's how we are building this insights from different students, and, keep us in the loop. And we will also keep you in the loop by sharing and continuously getting back to you in terms of whatever we learn and whatever is the best next step for you according to, our learnings, and make sure that you are staying safe. So that is all the things that we listed as an update from different parts of the world in terms of the international students and what will really happen to you either on campus or after graduating. Now it is, you're most welcome to post in comments, or in case there are any questions, we're happy to answer them. And it's actually 1 o'clock. So in case, you want to pitch in any comments, go ahead, or else I request, Lavish to actually go ahead and share any of the points that you have in terms of the poll questions or anything that you have. Yeah.
Shashi, there's a question coming from Sahil from YouTube. He says, first of all, he's asked if there is an update from the University of Colorado Boulder. So for that, I'll just be able to tell something about it. That they have really not announced anything. By June, they will probably announce their decision. But yes, they're leaning towards a hybrid model as well. Right. And there's another question again from Sahil, who says, I have admits from different US universities, but now I fear to go to US and now planning to go somewhere else. Can you suggest me some good universities and colleges which are safe for this fall?
Well, safe for this fall, we use the safe word in multiple dimensions, right? One is the admission chance safety that we see, but I'm assuming here you're referring to the corona safety that, we are all talking about. So in terms of the countries which have lesser cases or stronger in the motive of actually controlling it by social distancing and measures, we see, some of the options like Australia, New Zealand, and Canada really being progressive about it. Now, you have different US admits. So it's not a generic statement that we should make even about US, because the effect of coronavirus varies within the US itself. You should look at the states, and you should look at how the universities are responding, and whether the universities with the admits that you have, if they are of greater value for money, and you see that there is an online semester that they are offering, it may not be a bad idea to go ahead with an online semester with, of course, a discounted student fee. So it really boils down to understanding the value for money for that particular university, and whether they are open to giving any rebates just for the online semester part, right? So, but mostly from a legal point of view, we'll still have the employment opportunities open. So in terms of good countries, those are the Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Those are the three countries that come to our minds. Shivani, if there are any other countries that you want to just comment on, please go ahead.
So Sahil, I think I have had a call with you. You've signed up on our platform as well. I would still suggest, seeing the stats for Colorado, it's actually on the lower side of the number of COVID cases. But specific to your program, I would really recommend you to, maybe look at our Select platform, where you can actually basis what you prefer other than safety also. you can just mark in your metrics and get a list of safe, moderate, and ambitious schools on our select platform. You can connect with me and I'll maybe guide you through how to navigate on there for a selection of schools other than what you already have as an admit.
Right. And even if you want to compare the ones that you are looking at as admits, so basically select is the part on the platform where you can evaluate different universities using data science. And the fund is the platform where you actually have multiple lenders who are ready to give student loans for all of them to compete in a transparent manner. So that's a bidding platform called FundRight. The first one is SelectRight. So you can choose SelectRight to move forward and evaluate those options. And also want to touch base on the fact that it's a difficult time for many of you because of the uncertainty, but we are not losing anything. You are with your family. You are just trying to go take an option that you always wanted to take in the last 1 year, but there is some movement in terms of when to take it. That's all. So there is nothing life-changing that is happening. I want you to have your confidence and self-esteem still high, so that you are just changing some of the timelines of some of the projects maybe at best. But moving forward with an education option at this time, when the industry is slow, is not at all a bad idea. And in fact, it is a preferred idea in most cases. So with that notion, you should approach positively towards these things. And here is a poll question that we want you to just answer, so that will help us understand how you're thinking about it in terms of what your plans are, whether you're going to the, by the university's decision. Definitely try deferring to, to spring 2021, or definitely try deferring to fall 2021, right? So it would be interesting to see how you would respond. The idea of university decision is that you're going for an online program.
There's one more anonymous attendee who's put in a question, but the question is not complete. She says they are allowing us to defer to spring, that too when we are not able to make it for fall 2020. I assume the question is that it's unfair of the universities to not give them the deferral option for fall 2021. So if at all there is a solution, or if at all that is something that can be done about speaking to universities.
Right. So if you are working and if you have a good job and you are not out of your job, and you're getting a good salary and you can continue your work for another 1 year, and if your salary is quite high, that it is fine to work here instead of going abroad, in those cases fall 2021 could be a decent option. In other cases, it is always good to use your time as early as possible for your masters, because you put in a lot of effort till this point. And at the same time, earlier that you do your masters in your life, it is generally better, because you graduate earlier, you get to a better opportunity than what you have now earlier in your life. So there is more time that you spend at a better career than wasting time in something else which it may not be as good as that right now. So you will have to evaluate that and give enough value to that. So in my view, spring 2021 is still a decent option to go, if at all you have confusions between spring 2021 and fall 2021. All right, so thank you so much. And I think you found some value out of this webinar. And if you do, thank you, and put in a comment. We'll be happy about it, because there is a team that works towards this research. And if you are not, do let us know how we can improve it. And also let us know what kind of webinars do you want to see in the future, so that we could work towards that and make it a bit more fun and engaging than putting out these updates from a one-sided point of view. All right, all the very best. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day ahead.